Housekeeper spent a night in a billionaire's bed. You won't believe what happened next. The storm raged outside, roaring like a wild animal ready to strike. Rain hammered against the expansive windows of Robert Carter's mansion, real estate that shimmered with wealth yet echoed with emptiness. Sarah stood in the hushed hallway, the scent of polished wood and lingering lavender enveloping her. She had never imagined working late for a man like him would lead to such an insane night. As a single mother, the grind never stopped, but this job. This was something else entirely. With the flick of a switch, the lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the room, the storm outside a fierce contrast to the stillness that engulfed them. Panic threatened to rise in her chest. What if she was left alone here, surrounded by gleaming riches and reclusive shadows? But then she heard Robert's voice, soft yet commanding, breaking through her fear. "It's all right, Sarah. Stay here. I'll find some candles." In that moment, the world outside faded, replaced by a warm, flickering glow as Robert returned. They each held a candle, and like two ships in a stormy sea, their lives began to intertwine. Awkward laughter turned into stories, a mother's sacrifices, a billionaire's loneliness. Sarah spoke of Lily, her bright smile and endless questions. She shared dreams pushed aside. "I just want her to have choices. A life filled with hope," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with determination. Robert listened, enraptured, the weight of his own gilded existence pressing down. "Sometimes, I wish I could trade it all for a single evening of laughter." Before they knew it, hours slipped into the night, filled with shared confessions and flickering candlelight. Their barriers began to dissolve, replaced by empathy and understanding. This unexpected bond left them both exposed, connected through their struggles. As dawn broke, Sarah stepped outside, the soft light bringing warmth to her skin. Home. She rushed back, her heart racing with pride. Life awaited, but when she entered her small apartment, reality crashed down like thunder. Her boss, a self-serving tyrant, denied her promotion, claiming she lacked qualifications. The words cut deep, leaving a heavy lump in her throat. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, whispers about her night with Robert spread like wildfire. Judgment rolled in like thick fog, clouding her reputation in the tight-knit community she cherished. Determined, Sarah refused to surrender her dignity. She gathered her neighbors, friends, everyone who had ever felt the sting of injustice. "We can't let others define our worth," she declared, her voice strong and steady. They formed a grassroots movement, people rising against social and economic disparities. The atmosphere crackled with excitement. A shared heartbeat ignited hope and courage. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But just when hope seemed tangible, a local newspaper threatened to unravel everything. They questioned her motives, casting shadows over her character. The hurtful murmurs rose louder, and with them, doubt crept into her heart. She felt the weight of judgment from people she had called friends. Would they stand by her side? Was her dream turning to dust? In a public forum meant to uplift her voice, Robert walked in. He stood before the crowd, ready to speak up for her. His presence sent a tremor through the audience. Would it be enough to silence the whispers, to reclaim her truth? The room felt heavy, the air thick with tension, as Sarah gazed into the uncertain faces around her. Would she find the strength to stand tall in her fight for respect, justice, and a future where she and Lily could thrive? Or would the tides of injustice drown her voice forever? The crowd murmured, a restless sea of faces shifting uncomfortably as Robert stepped forward. His presence filled the room, drawing eyes as he took a deep breath, ready to intervene. Sarah stood there, heart racing. She clutched the podium, a small piece of wood suddenly feeling like a lifeline. In the silence, she could hear the pounding of her own heart, a drumbeat of hope and fear. "Listen," Robert began, his voice firm yet warm. "I want to share my perspective on Sarah. The narrative created around her is filled with misconceptions. It doesn't reflect the woman I know, the courageous mother who fights for a better life for her daughter." His words hung in the air, and Sarah felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. She had faced judgment all week. The harsh whispers, the glances. But here was Robert, speaking the truth she desperately wanted everyone to understand. He continued, painting a picture of her life, her struggles, her dreams, and she felt seen for the first time in days. "But it's not just about Sarah," he added, strong and unyielding. "This is about all of us, our community. We are defined not by our wealth but by our humanity. By how we treat one another. Everyone deserves respect." The crowd shifted again, some nodding, while others crossed their arms in skepticism. But something was changing. Sarah could see it in their faces. The doubt was beginning to fade, replaced by curiosity, compassion. As Robert took a step back, women and men whispered opinions to each other, sparks of understanding igniting conversations. Sarah gathered herself and stepped up to the microphone. "I've made mistakes," she started, unsure of what to say. "But I refuse to let those mistakes define me. We all have stories to tell, and we must support each other, not tear each other down." With every word, she shed the weight of insecurity. Faces softened, and she found strength in vulnerability. "I want so much for my daughter, for all our children. To be proud of their mothers. To know they can chase their dreams without fear. I'm asking for your support, not pity." Tears brimmed in her eyes as she glanced at the audience. Some nodded. Others appeared touched. The energy in the room shifted closer to something hopeful. They stood together now, united in purpose. Just as Sarah finished, a tall figure emerged from the back of the room, a member of the local council. He raised his hand, silencing the murmurs once more. "Let us talk about the impact this has on our community as a whole. We need to ensure all voices are heard, not silenced." The room erupted in agreement, cheers lighting the tension-filled atmosphere like fireworks. Perhaps together, they could create real change. As they deliberated, Sarah felt a surge of pride. Hope blossomed within her for the first time in days. But then, the applause faded into a hush as someone shouted from the back, "What about your night with Robert? You think he is going to bail you out?" Sarah froze, the air thickening again. The question echoed all too loudly, seeping into the excitement that had built only moments before. Murmurs flared back to life, rekindling the judgment that hung over her like rain clouds. A sudden wave of doubt washed over her. Was she really worthy of this support? Would they turn against her once more? With steel in her heart, she turned to Robert but found no comfort in his gaze. He seemed lost in thought. Did he sense the tide shifting again? "Is this all just a publicity stunt?" another voice questioned, sharp as a whistle. Panic surged. Would this moment crumble? Or could she rise again, fight for the truth, and transform judgment into understanding? And as doubt threatened to drown her, the air filled with a fresh determination, she realized this battle was far from over. She took a deep breath, prepared to reclaim her voice, her truth, because it all hinged on one last idea. Would Robert stand by her when the headlines turned against them? As she looked out into the faces, the uncertainty loomed large. What would he say next? The room had shifted from hopeful to hostile within seconds. Sarah felt the air grow impossibly thick, with the weight of every accusation hanging heavy. She glanced at Robert, who seemed to be grappling with his own thoughts. Was he regretting stepping up for her, or was he strategizing how to respond? "Sarah, you know that's not true." Robert finally broke the tense silence, stepping forward once more. He caught Sarah's eye, and in that fleeting moment, she found a flicker of support. "This isn't about me or any of that nonsense," he continued, his tone growing more resolute. This is about who Sarah is as a person. He turned to the crowd, eyes blazing with passion. What are we doing here? Are we seriously so quick to judge someone for a moment in their life when we all stumbled? Aren't we meant to uplift each other instead of dragging each other down? The murmurs started to fade again, replaced by nodding heads. It was as if Robert's words were a lifeline for everyone in that room, pulling them away from the darkness of judgment and into a light of understanding. Sarah seized the moment. "Thank you, Robert," she said, her voice trembling yet stronger. "I've had to make some tough choices. But I'm here, standing in front of you all, trying to be better. I want my daughter to know that no matter what mistakes I've made, I can rise above them. We all can." A ripple of recognition passed through the crowd. She could see some mothers whispering to each other, their eyes glimmering with the understanding that they had each faced their own set of challenges. But then, a voice from the side spoke up, full of accusation. "You say you want support, but it's hard to trust you when we don't know you. We need to know the whole story." Sarah felt her heart sink. "I understand," she replied, her voice softer now, though still determined. "But life isn't just about the headlines or the mistakes. It's about who we choose to become in the aftermath." There was a pause, as if her words had struck a chord. One by one, faces in the crowd began to turn thoughtful. The anger started diffusing, replaced by something more human: curiosity, understanding. At that moment, one young woman stepped forward, her brow furrowed. "I lost my job last year, and honestly, I made some poor choices too. I don't want my mistakes to define me either." Her voice broke, and Sarah felt the hurt in the room shift from hostility to vulnerability. Soon, others began to step up, sharing their own stories. Each revelation built a bridge that connected them, one where harsh judgments began to retreat. Hope began to fill that space, starting to dismantle the barriers that had grown between them. Sarah couldn't help but smile through her tears. This was the community she longed for, the unity in vulnerability. But as she soaked in the moment, Robert reached for her hand. "Let us show them what we can do together," he said, his grip reassuring. Just then, the council member who had been silent all this time leaned back, arms crossed, his skepticism palpable. "That's all fine and good," he pronounced. "But actions speak louder than words. What are you prepared to do to actually change this narrative?" The crowd quieted, tension swirling in the air. Sarah turned to Robert, their eyes locking, the future unfolding like a fragile flower before them, beautiful yet uncertain. It was time for her to show them just how committed she was. But where did she begin? What steps could she take to pave the way for true change within their community? As her heart raced, she understood one thing: the real challenge was just beginning. A heavy silence settled over the room as Sarah searched for her words. The eyes of the council member bore into her, waiting, evaluating. Every heartbeat felt like an echoing declaration of her resolve. She took a breath, steadied herself, and focused on the faces that surrounded her. "I want to start a support group," she declared, her voice steady now. "A safe space for all of us. We can share our stories and create change together. It'll be a place to build understanding, offer support, and transform our mistakes into lessons." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some looked skeptical, while others leaned forward, intrigued. It was a bold step, one that would take effort and unity. But Sarah was ready to put in the work. "I know I'm not perfect," she added, fervently glancing from face to face. "And I might be new to this community, but I'm committed to making it better, for me and for my daughter." The council member shifted, clearly unimpressed. But there was a subtle change in the room. One older woman in the back raised her hand, her voice quivering. "What if we fail? What if no one shows up?" Sarah's heart sank momentarily, but she remembered the courage she felt just moments before. "What if we succeed?" she countered. "What if just one person walks in feeling lost but leaves empowered? That's worth the risk, isn't it?" Another woman, a young mother with tired eyes, stood and smiled gently. I think it's a great idea. I'd join. One by one, as if a wave powered by shared emotions, others joined in. Me too. I need this. I'll help. Voices filled the room, making it harder for doubt to survive. Robert squeezed her hand tighter, a proud glint in his eye. Sarah felt a rush of emotions: fear, hope, and warmth radiating from the acceptance that was starting to brew. But just as they began to envision the possibilities, the council member raised an eyebrow. It's a nice dream, Sarah, but how are you going to fund this? What resources do you have to offer? The weight of his words hung heavy, and Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty. She hadn't faced this angle. Would they abandon her at the first sign of trouble? But no. She was not going to back down now. I'll find a way. She declared, her voice ringing out. Even if it means organizing bake sales or car washes. I'll be out there every weekend hustling to make this happen. There are people who will support us, they just need to see that we're willing to work for it. As the crowd buzzed with fresh energy, Sarah felt the thrill of empowerment surge through her. The fear that had lingered in the air melted slightly, her vision was slowly taking root. Together, they could create something real. Okay, let us discuss this further, the council member said, a trace of reluctant admiration in his voice. But remember, actions really do speak louder than words. With the focus shifting back to Sarah, she understood that this was just the beginning. Yet, there was a fire ignited in her, a light that hadn't lived within her for so long. But, as she began brainstorming future steps, one troubling thought lingered. What if, despite their best efforts, everything fell apart? What would she tell her daughter then? The uncertainty loomed, and the fear of failure flickered in and out, mirroring her hopes. But Sarah knew she had to keep moving forward. The next challenge awaited, but she wasn't backing down. She felt energized and ready, but just how deep were her commitments going to take her? What sacrifices was she willing to make to ensure the future she envisioned? The answers were in the air, teasing yet just out of reach. Sarah stood at the front of the room, the friendly hum of camaraderie enveloping her. Ideas were bouncing around, and the atmosphere crackled with newfound determination. It felt so good, so right, yet the looming pressure of funding clenched at her stomach. She listened intently as the young mother who had spoken earlier began drafting suggestions. We could host a community potluck. People love food, and they love coming together. They'll donate, and we can gather supplies from local businesses. Yes. Another voice chimed in. What about a talent show? Everyone has something to offer. Music, art, even stand-up comedy. People will come to showcase their skills and support the cause. Encouraged by the suggestions, Sarah glanced at Robert, who grinned back at her. She couldn't help but feel that old familiar warmth spread through her. Ideas were flowing, yes, but a flicker of doubt lanced through her. What if it wasn't enough? Let us not forget about our kids, an older gentleman with salt and pepper hair spoke up. His weathered hands rested firmly on the table. They need this just as much as we do. We should set up a kids' space during meetings, a place where they can learn and play while we work. As cheers broke out around the room, Sarah's heart swelled. This was what she had envisioned, a community coming together, not just for one cause, but as a beacon of hope for each other. Yet, as the waves of enthusiasm rolled in, another dark thought cast a shadow. Would their intentions stand the test against harsh realities? What if the very community that rallied was the same one to tear apart when things got tough? She pushed those thoughts aside. These are fantastic ideas, she said, her voice cutting through the animation. Let us assign roles so we can start putting plans into action. Who's in charge of the potluck? With laughter and chatter, names were tossed around. Sarah felt more like a conductor of an orchestra than a simple woman with a dream, and for the first time, her fear felt manageable. As the meeting ended, members exchanged smiles and handshakes, their excitement palpable. Robert pulled her aside, a glimmer in his eye. You did great, Sarah. I never doubted you for a second. I still can't believe it, she breathed, glancing back at the group. It's like they're really with me on this. Just then, a gentle tap on her shoulder pulled her from her thoughts. The older woman, the one who had voiced her initial fears, stood there with tears glistening in her eyes. Thank you for believing in us, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You're giving us hope. A lump formed in Sarah's throat. No, it's all of us. We're in this together, she replied, squeezing the woman's hand gently. As they talked, ideas sparked between them. But as Sarah turned to leave for the night, a pull of anxiety tightened in her chest. What if the plans devolved? What if her efforts resulted in heartache instead of healing? That night, back at home, Sarah lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Robert's gentle breathing filled the room. She thought about her daughter sleeping in the next room, unaware of the challenges that lay ahead. Would she have the strength to shield her from disappointment? In her mind, all she could see were bright faces and encouraging smiles. But what would happen if the reality fell short? What would she tell her daughter if all this crumbled? Sarah sighed deeply, feeling a mix of determination and doubt intertwined tightly in her heart. Tomorrow, they would take action. Tomorrow would be the test of their resolve. And she had to be ready. It was time to dig deeper. With that thought echoing in her brain, she closed her eyes, seeking solace in the dream of what could be. But as the darkness of sleep began to wash over her, one startling question hovered just out of reach: how far would she push herself for the sake of this new hope? Morning light streamed through Sarah's window, warming her face and stirring her awake. She blinked a few times, the weight of yesterday's meeting still pressing on her heart. Today was the day they would take the first steps toward their dreams, and she needed to hold on to that hope. As she got out of bed, the scent of coffee brewed by Robert filled the air, a familiar comfort in the whirlwind of uncertainty. She found him in the kitchen, pouring 2 steaming mugs. He looked up and smiled, a beam of sunshine in the midst of her storm of thoughts. Ready for a big day? He asked, handing her a cup. Sarah wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic, feeling the heat seep into her palms. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied, forcing a smile. But the knot in her stomach was back, tighter than ever. After a hurried breakfast, Sarah gathered her notes and materials. A sense of urgency propelled her through the morning. Her daughter's laughter echoed from the living room as she played, blissfully unaware of the challenges awaiting her mother. "Mommy, are you going to do the fun stuff today?" her daughter called. Sarah paused, the word striking her like a lightning bolt. "Yes, sweetie. Just a little bit of fun and a lot of hard work," she said, her voice softer than intended. "Can I come?" "Not just yet, but I'll tell you all about it later." She wanted to shield her from the pressure, but could she really? With a rush of determination, she stepped outside, embarking on a mission to connect with fellow volunteers. The sun hung high, and the streets buzzed with life. Sarah walked with purpose, her mind racing with plans. The community center was a hive of activity when she arrived. Chairs were being set up, banners unfurled, and laughter spilled from every corner. The vibrant energy felt contagious, lifting her spirits. Team members greeted her, each wearing expressions of resolve, as if yesterday's excitement had spread like wildfire. As they gathered for a meeting, Sarah felt exhilarated. She was no longer just a face in the crowd, she was part of something bigger. The air brimmed with possibility. They reviewed the tasks ahead, bouncing ideas off one another. "We'll need volunteers to handle the kids' space," Sarah called out, her enthusiasm infectious. "And let us make a list of local businesses we can reach out to for donations." Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, her heart sinking when she saw a text from the landlord. Rent was due soon, and the subtle reminder felt like a punch in the gut. Robert leaned over, noticing her expression. "Everything okay?" he whispered, concern in his eyes. Sarah shook her head slightly, straightening her posture. Just life, she murmured, forcing the weight aside. Not now. The meeting wrapped up with cheers of excitement. Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope surge within her. But as everyone dispersed to their tasks, she caught sight of the older woman from last night, watching from a distance. Sarah, she called, stepping forward. There was a tremor in her voice that made Sarah's heart twist. I'm scared. What if we fail? The question hung in the air, heavy and raw. What if they did? Panic rippled through Sarah, but she took a breath. We might, but isn't it worth trying? She searched the woman's face, willing her own fears to be banished. The woman nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. You're right. We've got to try. Just then, a shout echoed from outside. A little boy had tripped and fallen. Sarah's heart raced as she rushed toward the sound. As she reached the door, a thought flashed through her mind: how could one small moment of failure ripple into something much larger? Finding the child crying on the pavement, she knelt beside him, her heart pounding as she wondered, could they really overcome it all? Before she could comfort him, a hand landed on her shoulder. It was Robert. You can't save everyone, but together, we can lift each other up, he whispered, inspiring a flicker of confidence in her. As she helped the boy up, she noticed others rushing in to help, a beautiful reminder of community in action. But as laughter mixed with the fading cries of the child, one question lingered at the back of her mind: could they rally together when the stakes were even higher? With resolve growing in her heart, Sarah looked around at the faces prepared to fight alongside her. Could this truly lead to something transformative? The answer loomed, waiting just beyond the echoes of laughter. Sarah's journey was only just beginning, and the true test was looming heavy on the horizon. What lay ahead was not just a battle for funding, but a fight for dreams and resilience in a world riddled with uncertainties. The sun dipped low in the sky as Sarah stepped outside, feeling the warmth fading along with the day. She had a few hours before the event would kick off. It was a window of time she desperately hoped to fill with preparation, yet doubts bobbed to the surface of her mind like pesky weeds. Could her dreams flourish amidst such constraints? With each step toward the community center, she fought against a swirl of what-ifs. What if no one showed up? What if they didn't raise enough money? But as she approached the building, the sight of sunflowers blooming along the walkway brightened her mood. They stood magnificently tall, resilient against the wind just like her and the other volunteers. Inside, the buzz of excitement greeted her. Laughter echoed as children ran around, colors splashed everywhere. The decorations had come together beautifully. A large banner hung over the entrance that read, "Together we rise." Sarah's heart swelled at the sight. Hey! You're here. A cheerful voice broke through her thoughts. It was Lisa, another volunteer whose energy seemed boundless. We need you at the craft table. The kids have been waiting. Okay, let us do this. Sarah replied, her spirits lifting as she transformed her anxiousness into eagerness. She moved through the center, spreading glue and paper, picking up the vibrant colors of the day's excitement. For a few moments, Sarah lost herself in the joy of creation. Hands were busy making art, laughter spilling forth like sunshine. The moments felt pure, filling her heart with the kind of happiness she struggled to find at times. A child passed her a finger-painted sunshine, grinning from ear to ear. Look! It's you! What a masterpiece! She exclaimed, pinching her cheeks playfully, and in that instant, she allowed herself to rely on this connection of community, creativity, and presence. But amidst the laughter, her phone buzzed again. She hesitated before looking down. It was a reminder for their upcoming rent payment. The knot returned. She tucked the phone away, willing her stress to dissipate, but it lingered like an unwanted guest. As the crafts wound down, Sarah moved to the main area, where the stage was being set for the fundraising announcements. She glanced up to see Robert discussing logistics with fellow volunteers. They looked so driven, and she felt a surge of gratitude that he was there, a rock in the impending storm. Before long, it was time to gather everyone for the main event. Sarah stood at the front, gazing out at the crowd, families, friends, and members of the community who had come to support them. Today was about them, not just about the money. It was about making dreams tangible and forging bonds that could withstand time. "Thank you for being here." Sarah's voice wavered, but she pushed through. "When we work together, we can create a world for our children, a place where laughter and dreams are a part of everyday life." Cheers erupted. Under her breath, she whispered, "Please let this work," and the energy seemed to pulse back, wrapping around her heart with safety. Just as she began to feel the momentum building, an unexpected tension twisted the atmosphere. A shadow appeared at the back of the crowd, a figure she recognized immediately, their landlord. They exchanged brief eye contact, and Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Could he be here to threaten the very hope they were trying to build today? As the moment stretched on, she pondered whether she could confront him or if this would unravel everything she had worked so hard for. But the message of community surged inside of her. This event was bigger than one person's fear, bigger than her uncertainties. With her heart racing, determination swept over her. Something had to change today, not only for her but for everyone gathered, an anchor solid enough to keep their dreams afloat. What if, instead of worry, she could infuse the night with strength? Could they convert this fear into action? The night had only just begun, and as she faced the crowd with resolve, uncertainty hung in the air, ready to swirl into something monumental. The tension thickened like heavy fog, wrapping around Sarah as she caught her landlord's gaze. His eyes narrowed, and her breath hitched. The laughter of the children and the joyful chatter of the crowd faded into the background, replaced by the relentless drum of her heartbeat. She took a moment to breathe, grounding herself in the present. "No," she whispered to herself, "not today. Not when we've come so far." As the cheers from the crowd echoed in her ears, Sarah straightened her shoulders. She glanced back at Robert, who was talking to a group of excited kids, unaware of the storm brewing just behind her. She could feel the weight of the landlord's presence like a shadow creeping closer, ready to snuff out the light of hope they'd built. "Sarah." Lisa's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back. "Ready for our first speaker?" "Yeah. Let us do this," she replied, forcing a smile, gripping the podium as if it were a lifeline. The first speaker stepped up, a local teacher, whose words danced on the air like music. Sarah listened, thankful for the delightful stories that wrapped around them like threads of gold. Each story served as a reminder of why they were all there, for dreams, aspirations, for a future that didn't feel so heavy. As the crowd roared with applause, Sarah could see hope shining in the eyes of everyone present. Children, parents, and fellow volunteers drew strength from each other. The earlier anxiety began to fade, all they needed was momentum. But then, the landlord's figure loomed larger in her mind. Her palms grew sweaty, and she cursed herself for letting fear creep back in. Just as she was about to lose the nerve to confront him, he turned his back and stepped outside. "Wait!" Sarah called, her voice firm, surprising even herself. The crowd's chatter dwindled, heads swiveling toward her. What was she doing? But doubts began to dissipate. This was her moment, no more running. Gathering her courage, she turned to the audience. "I know we're here for fun tonight," she started, her voice steady now. "But I want to acknowledge something that doesn't feel right. We're building a community together, and part of that is standing up for one another." A ripple of murmurs spread across the gathering. Sarah's heart raced as she sought her next words. "I'd like to call out Mr. Jenkins," she said with pointed clarity, her gaze returning to where he had been standing. "We're all rooting for something better, and we can't do that while dragging our neighbors down." Gasps filled the air, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Sarah felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Conversations started to buzz, community members leaning toward each other, exchanging glances of solidarity. Let us join together to make sure everyone here feels safe and supported, she continued, the passion in her voice rising. Let us be the heart of this community, and let us not let fear of the future hold us hostage. The crowd erupted in applause. Sarah's heart soared. The words she had feared she might hesitate to speak had erupted out of her, fueled by the energy enveloping her. She felt alive, standing on the brink of change. But just as the applause filled her spirit with joy, she saw a flash of movement. Mr. Jenkins was at the door again, his face flushed with anger. The cheers died down, and all eyes turned toward him. Enough of this nonsense, he shouted, throwing open the door wider. This isn't about the kids. You're all wasting your time with this little charade. The tension returned tenfold, and Sarah's stomach dropped. It felt like a storm was brewing, and she had just ignited the first spark. What would happen next? Would the community rally around her words or buckle under the weight of confrontation? Sarah held her breath, feeling every heartbeat in the room synchronize with her own, as they all waited together for what was to come. The tension in the air was palpable, a thick rope pulling tighter with every passing moment. Sarah's heart raced, each thump echoing in her ears as the crowd braced itself. Mr. Jenkins's angry face burned with indignation, ready to cut through the kindness they had just conjured together. Wasting our time? She dared to respond, her voice unwavering. This is about our children's future, about the families who call this place home. He stepped forward, his shadow looming larger, casting doubt among the crowd. You think your little speeches will change anything? You're dreamers, nothing but dreamers. But something ignited in Sarah. She straightened her back, channeling all her fear and anger. Dreams build foundations, Mr. Jenkins. Foundations of community, trust, and hope. And we're not going anywhere. Around her, people began to murmur, exchanging glances filled with a new sense of determination. Mothers wrapped their arms around their children as if to shield them from the landlord's harshness. Friends held tight to each other, a quiet but determined stand forming in the space between them. Jenkins looked gobsmacked by the sudden unity. He stuttered, searching for words, desperate to snap them back into submission. But they weren't having it. They started to clap, slowly at first, then it swelled into a wave of support that shook the ground beneath Sarah's feet. Let us show him we mean it. Lisa shouted, her voice sharp and clear as she joined in, rallying everyone around them. We are not afraid. More applause erupted, ringing against the fading dusk like an anthem of resilience. Each clap crackled with electricity, lifting Sarah's spirit higher. From the depths of uncertainty, light burst forth. She felt the crowd surge with her vibrant, alive, and ready for battle. But Jenkins wasn't finished. You think this is just about you? It's not. I don't have to listen to any of this. This is my property. His frustration seeped through his clenched fists, and he took a step closer, but Sarah stood her ground. Your property? She echoed, letting the words linger. It may be your name on the papers, but it's our community in the heart of this place. You're a piece of a puzzle we refuse to let be ignored. And there it was, another roar of applause. It ricocheted among the walls, each clap bolstering their resolve even further. Sarah glanced at Robert, who now stood at the back of the crowd, his proud smile a beacon of hope that reassured her she wasn't alone. In that moment, something shifted. The crowd began to chant, a chorus of voices rising together in solidarity. We are family. We are strong. As Sarah joined the chant, her eyes locked onto Jenkins, who was now looking less imposing. His bravado faltered, inching back as the crescendo of voices washed over him like a tidal wave of unity. But then, abruptly, the chanting stopped. A clank sounded as the giant chain locking the park's entrance spun around, every eye shifted to the source. There stood an official from the city council, with an air of authority that commanded attention. Excuse me, the man announced, his expression serious. What is going on here? Questions buzzed through the crowd, a palpable mix of confusion and curiosity swirling in the air. Sarah's heart raced again, though this time it was painted with excitement and trepidation. The stage had shifted, and now they faced another unpredictable hurdle. Would this official stand by or support their fight? The crowd shifted, their curiosity intertwining with hope. Sarah took a deep breath, preparing to speak again, the words brewing like a storm in her chest. There was no turning back now. The stakes had never felt higher. Would they seize this moment, or would they find themselves silenced once again? The air crackled with a mix of uncertainty and anticipation as Sarah faced the city official. This was their chance. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice resonating with urgency. "We're here to stand up for our community. Too often, people like Mr. Jenkins forget the impact they have on our lives." The crowd murmured in agreement, the tension shifting slightly as they leaned in closer, eager to hear what would follow. She felt buoyed by their presence, their shared resolve blending into a powerful energy. The official crossed his arms, studying Sarah intently. "And what exactly do you want?" he asked, his tone measured but curious. "We want to create a community space where our children can learn and grow. A place where everyone has a voice, not just those with power. We refuse to let fear dictate our futures," she declared, her passion blooming anew in the room. With each word, Sarah could see the spark ignite in the eyes of those around her. Whispers passed among community members, a collective realization forming like thick clouds breaking apart under the sun's rays. The official's expression softened just a little. "That sounds commendable, but change needs funding. How will you go about that?" Knowing the stakes were high, Sarah rallied her thoughts. "We're ready to take action. We'll organize fundraising events, partnerships with local businesses, community classes, and more. Together, we can channel our dreams into tangible realities," she urged. "But we're asking for your support not just in funding, but in standing by our side." The official rubbed his chin thoughtfully, immersed in the gravity of her plea. He turned toward Jenkins, who was visibly seething. "What have you done to support this community lately?" He questioned him, the authority in his voice bridging the gap between power and empathy. Jenkins opened his mouth to respond but faltered, realizing he had no ground to stand on. The crowd's chant of "We are family. We are strong," rang in his ears, silencing his indignation. "Maybe it's time for a change in perspective," the official continued, facing the crowd again. "I'm willing to discuss how we can facilitate this, create a genuine dialogue. But it will require dedication from all of you." "Yes." Sarah cheered, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt invincible, riding the wave of collective spirits rising within her community. A few hands began to rise, voices speaking out, each one offering ideas and commitments. "I can organize the potluck," a woman shouted. "I know some musicians who'd love to perform." Another added, excitement igniting like dry kindling reacting to flame. As their aspirations took root, Sarah glanced at Robert, and in that moment, everything melted away. The night spent in darkness had birthed hope, shared stories were mending the community together like stitches. "We're doing this," he whispered with a bright smile, and Sarah nodded, feeling the weight lift. But just then, Jenkins scoffed, "You think this is going to change anything? You're delusional." "Maybe you should listen to them," the official replied coolly. "They have something you clearly don't, unity." The crowd transformed, faces hardened, eyes glistened with determination. Fate teetered on the edge of history. This was a defining moment, reflecting the heartbeat of their desires, the unyielding spirit ready to push against the tide of dismissiveness. "Let us band together, show the strength of our voice, our resolve," Sarah shouted, her pulse racing with adrenaline. And with that spark igniting the flames of togetherness, chants of empowerment erupted once again, the very essence of community bursting to life before her. "We are family. We are strong," echoed through the center, weaving through the fabric of their determination. The official's presence shifted, almost intrigued, as they stood as one, a coalition unbreakable. Jinx merely stood aside, the arrogant expression on his face replaced by uncertainty. The tides were turning, and he knew it. "Gather a plan," the official said, his tone more approving. "And we'll ensure the local council. Here's your voices. You've got my support." Cheers erupted, and Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. This was the moment she had dreamed of. A collaboration, a bridge of understanding between worlds that usually stood apart. As the noise of celebration washed over her, Sarah caught sight of her daughter through the crowd. Little Lily was there, clapping alongside her companions, her beaming smile radiating through the chaos. "Look, Mommy. We're winning," she shouted, joy spilling from her voice. It took Sarah a moment to process the reality. Yes, they were winning. They were changing the narrative, building hope right before their eyes. At that moment, everything aligned perfectly: love, strength, resolve, and community held together tightly like a beautifully tied ribbon. They had started something magnificent, a foundation built on understanding and support. Tears streaked down Sarah's face, but they were tears of joy, pride, and liberation. "This is just the beginning," she proclaimed, her heart bursting with every word. As the noise faded back into laughter and merriment, she knew they would rise together, hand in hand, come what may. And in that beautiful embrace of community, as the sun set and the darkness faded from their world, they would finally shine brighter together. This was their moment, a moment of transformation. The fight for their dreams had only just begun. And as the night unfolded, Sarah couldn't help but think, together, they would rewrite their story. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and get these transformative tales out there. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.